Hello everyone. So today I kind of want to do an updating video on why I skipped on 6.5 Grendel and 6.5 Arc in 2025 and most likely, going forward in 2026. Which is not to say that like I'll never get it, but I had some discussion in the comments of my videos last year where I had told people that I was considering getting it, I was researching it. And I sort of thought that, hey, I should kind of like do a video kind of getting back to those people, to letting them know, like, okay, why didn't I do it? Okay. So last year, I started getting into, basically, I got this 16-inch AR-47, right? So basically, it's a mil-spec lower, and I just got an upper chambered in 7.62 by 3.9, which is the AK-47 caliber, okay? And, once I got that in my hands, I started shooting it, started doing some serious research, started posting some videos. That's when people started saying, hey, what about 6.5 Grendel, 6.5 Arc? I liked it a lot. And then, like, I put together this 7.5-inch 7.62 by 3.9, started shooting this, doing a whole bunch of videos. And then recently I put together this 10.5-inch 7.62 by 3.9. Okay, and all it is basically it's a barrel change and a bolt change, not even a bolt carrier change, just the bolt itself. Okay, and the bolt itself, because I think the extractor is usually milled a little bit thinner. Now with 7.62 by 3.9, 6.5 Arc, 6.5 Grendel, what they basically do is they take the same bolt face and they mill it out to accept the wider case. Okay, let me pull one out here for a second. So it's a mil-spec bolt carrier, right? Bulky, the cam, all that, except that the wall over here, right, of the bolt is basically just a little bit thinner. So a little bit thinner means a little bit weaker. Okay, not that I've had a problem, but right away that's like a potential problem. Okay, now with the 7.62 by 3.9, it is a lower pressure round than 5.56, so that could possibly like kind of offset that. Okay, and I don't know offhand what the pressure is on the 6.5 Grendel and the 6.5 Arc. The 6.5 Grendel is supposed to be a little bit more powerful. Okay, so I did a video over the year where I was researching, trying to figure out, okay, exactly how much more powerful is it to make it work. Okay, so out of my 16-inch, with most AK-47 ammunition, right, 7.62 by 3.9, I get about 1,400 foot-pounds of energy. With some ammo, it can go up to 1,500 foot-pounds of energy. Okay. But the average, from what I've seen, like, I've even seen it go as low as 1,300 foot-pounds of energy. But let's say that 1,400 foot-pounds of energy is the average of what I'm going to get by 7.62 by 3.9 in a 16-inch barrel. Okay. So I was looking up the 6.5 Grendel. Okay. So with the 6.5 Grendel, a lot of times they'll quote you like 1,900 foot-pounds of energy. But you gotta look at the barrel length, okay? Because a lot of times they're talking about like, not even a 20-inch barrel. They're talking about like a 22-inch barrel, a 24-inch barrel. So when you're looking at the velocity and energy of 6.5 Grendel or 6.5 Arc, the first question you got to ask yourself is, okay, what barrel length are you using, right? Because if you take a 7.62 by 3.9 or 5.56 or anything and give it a long barrel, you're going to get more velocity. You're going to get more energy. Okay? So I managed to get some data from a couple of different sources of people that had basically tested out the 6.5 Grendel in 16-inch barrels. Okay, so with the target ammo, with the cheap budget ammunition, they're only getting about 1,500 foot-pounds of energy. Okay, so at best they're getting maybe 100 or 200 foot-pounds more energy than my AR-47. Okay, now if you get the expensive ammo, right? Yes, you can push it further. You can get up to like 1,600 and 1,700 foot-pounds of energy. But now you're talking about throwing, you know, some serious money behind your ammo. And the problem with that is, okay, how much of that you're going to get? I mean, you're going to get, what, a couple of hundred rounds? Like, you know, you're not going to be able to stockpile thousands and thousands and thousands of rounds. Okay, so with 5.56, I've literally got like stockpiles of 5.56 ammo in the thousands. Same thing with the AR-47, right? With the 7.62 by 3.9. From my AK-47 days, right? I've got a stockpile of AK ammo. So right away for me, it's like, okay, it kind of makes sense to, you know, invest a little bit, and it was really a little bit of an investment to get into the AR-47 because I already had the ammunition. Okay, if I didn't have the ammunition, okay, I would consider more getting into the 6.5 Grendel or the 6.5 ARC. Okay, I would consider it more. Now, the 6.5 ARC is kind of like in the beginning stages. From what I hear, what I've seen, it's a lot more expensive than the 6.5 Grendel. Okay, so there's a price issue. There is a price difference. Okay, and like I said, within that, you know, they've got the with 6.5 ARC, I think it's just expensive ammunition that's available because it hasn't really been around that long. With the 6.5 Grendel, you can get cheap stuff, right? I think you can get like Wolf, right? But that's only going to get you 1,500 foot-pounds of energy out of a 16-inch barrel, okay? And then you've got like the more expensive stuff, which is going to push you up into the 1,700s, maybe 1,800s. So that's again, I'm just putting this out there as a consideration. That like I looked at it and it's like, okay, I mostly shoot cheap target ammo, so on the power side, I'm not getting, I'm really not getting a big benefit out of that. Okay, so how about on the accuracy side? So this Davidson Defense AR 7.62 by 3.9 upper. I've posted lots of videos where I'm getting 1 inch at 100 yards. Okay, so I've got plenty of times, 5-shot groups, repeatable. I really lucked out with this barrel. Now I was wondering, hey, and that's just shooting like Russian ammunition. I got those 1-inch groups with Red Army Standard and Tula White Box. Okay, when I shoot the Wolf and when I shoot the Tula Black Box, the groups open up a little bit. Well, I'm still like doing like almost like 2 inches. So it's still good. I mean, just using this loves that ammunition. Okay. Now I was wondering, hey, maybe I just got lucky with that barrel. How do these other barrels do? So put this guy back together here. Okay. I had this one first, the 7.5 inch. I think I've hit like 2 inches. I think that's like the best I've gotten with this. No, actually, I've gotten 1.5 inches. 1.5 inches is the best I've gotten with this. Most of the time, I'm getting closer to 2 inches. And again, that's with the Russian ammo. And this 10.5 over here, which I've only had now for about a month or so. I think that I'm getting mostly like 2 inches. I haven't really, but I haven't done a whole lot of shooting with it yet. So the point is that the accuracy is not that bad, okay? Especially when I've got one here that's shooting 1 inch at 100 yards, and I've actually had this setup here. I've had this out to 500 yards. Had a Night Force 2.5 to 20 scope on this, which had basically it had turns that I could dial up. So once I was able to dial up and adjust for the bullet drop, which is a lot with 7.62 by 3.9, I was able to get 500 yards and make consistent hits. Okay, you need a pretty big scope that's going to give you subtensions so that you can have holds out to 500 yards. Now on this one over here, I've got an ACSS red dot. Okay, so it's got chevron, it's got the big horseshoe, and it's got the 3 dots underneath it. Using the 3rd dot, I can get out to 400 yards and make consistent hits with this. So to get the 500 yards, I need a different scope. Okay, so that's not terrible. Okay, so the issue that I have, and this is more of a personal thing, is like in order for me to shoot 500 yards, I gotta drive like almost, basically 2 hours each way. Okay, in order for me to get to the 1,000 yard range, it's a 5 hour drive to each way. Okay, so it's like 10 hours of driving in a day. So I most of the time I am shooting 200 yards and in. Okay, so with the 6.5 Grendel 6.5 arc, they can get you out to 1,000 yards. Okay, but the problem is that I don't get to do it that often. Okay, so here's the thing: I don't get to do it that often, but I do get to do it. Okay, so when I'm, the couple of times a year, maybe 3 or 4 times a year that I make that 10-hour drive to go shoot the 1,000 yards, right? And I'm usually day tripping it, so 5 hours to get there. I'm usually there about 5 hours and then 5 hours back. So in that 5 hour window, okay, when I go there, I'm basically bringing my AR-10. Okay, I'm bringing a 308. I'm bringing my best guns. Okay, so again, that's an issue that me personally thinking about it. It's a question of, okay, if I get the 6.5 arc, how much am I actually going to shoot it? Because it's not going to be as good as a 308. Okay. Now, when I get to that 500 yard range, they've got like these, the targets, the steel plate targets, they're like 40 pounds, okay? And basically they're sitting up here, and when you shoot them, they get knocked over. That's how you know you got them. So they're very thick 40-pound targets. So at 500 yards, when I'm shooting it with 5.56, I usually have to put multiple impacts, like put multiple hits on it at 500 yards to move to knock the target over. Okay, so one hit usually doesn't knock it over. One hit usually wiggles it a little bit, right, because it's the way it's sitting. So sometimes it'll get knocked over with the first hit, but usually it'll take multiple hits to knock it over, which is pretty cool because that's really realistic. That you got to put, like at 500 yards, I have to put multiple hits with 5.56 because it's pretty much impacting like a 9mm, right? A 9mm on a 40-pound piece of steel that's like, I think they're like almost like 3/4 of an inch thick. I mean, it's it's realistic because when I shoot those same targets, let's say at 300 yards, yeah, they get knocked right over. Okay, at 400 yards, it struggles a little bit more. At 500 yards, I definitely got to put multiple hits on it. So with when I'm shooting when I'm shooting 800 yards to 1,000 yards, right? When I'm shooting it with the 308, it knocks them over, right? But when if I were to go there with a 6.5 Grendel or 6.5 arc, it's gonna struggle to knock them over, okay? Because at those distances, I think it's gonna be just as effective as, let's say, the 5.56 at 500 yards, okay, where it takes multiple hits. And at that distance, okay, wind is a big issue. So usually with the 308, right, when I'm shooting the AR-10 at 800 to 1,000 yards, like I pick a target, I take a shot on it or 2 shots, and I spot the impact. So the 308 hits the ground hard enough so I know where I'm impacting, and then I can correct, right, using the mill grid and get on target and make my hits. Okay, but what's going to happen, like I've shot, for example, 5.56 at 800 yards, right, 850 yards, and the problem is that the splashes aren't big enough to spot the impacts. That's the problem that I had with 5.56 at 800 plus yards, and I'm gonna have the same problem, I think, with the 6.5 Grendel or 6.5 arc. So again, it kind of like I find myself in a place where it's like, if I'm driving that long to get out there, do I want to waste time with an inferior caliber, 500 to 1,000 yards, or do I want to just go straight to the 308 and make that and make it count? So I think I'm going to want to just go straight to the AR-10, right? Just go straight to 308. So again, that's a reason why I didn't jump into the 6.5 Grendel or the 6.5 arc. And what I did is I said, hey, I got lots of 7.62 by 3.9 ammo. And what I did is I just, after I got this, I just started, I made this, I invested some money into this. So it makes more sense for me to just focus on the ammo that I have than, you know, get into like something completely new that's going to be kind of mediocre at distance, and you know, where I gotta start buying lots of ammo. Okay. Now the other thing is, it's like, okay, fine. So that's talking about at distance. Well, how about like if you're shooting closer? Like, so here's an interesting thing. I've done lots of 200 yards in shooting with the 7.62 x 3.9. So one of the exercises that I do is I'll do double taps at 200 yards, where I get on the target, right? And what I want to do is I want to get 2 shots off before I hear the ding, right? So I don't want to go boom, ding, okay? I want to go boom, boom, ding, ding, okay? So those are what I call double taps, okay? So with the recoil on the 7.62 x 3.9, it's even though it's just a little bit more than 5.56, it's enough that it is really hard for me to do that exercise where I double tap and I get the 2 shots off and then hear the ding back. So what that's telling me is that the slight increase in recoil on the 7.62 x 3.9 is, you know, it basically affects my ability to make quick follow-up shots. Okay, so with the slightly more powerful 6.5 Grendel 6.5 arc, that's going to be even harder. Okay, so again, I'm kind of finding myself in a position where it's like, where the best option seems to be either 5.56 or 308. Okay, and the in-between stuff is like, well, kind of like a compromise. It's kind of, that doesn't do anything great. You know, it's kind of like mediocre. Like the 5.56 excels at up close shooting, right? It excels in fast follow-up shots. It's capable out to 500 yards, okay? But you know, and then the AR-10 like dominates like 500 yards to 1,000 yards. 6.5 Creedmoor, I looked into that. Problem with 6.5 Creedmoor is that it's a barrel burner. You're gonna get like a third of the life because the bullet's going a lot faster, so it burns the barrel a lot faster. Like it eats up the rifling a lot faster. So with the 308, it's going pretty much at the same, almost a little bit slower than your 5.56. So you get a lot more barrel length. So to me, that kind of makes sense. You're getting that's almost that same power, and you're not burning through your barrel. A lot of times people say, hey, 1,000 yards, the 6.5 Creedmoor is better, is more powerful. Okay, so it's only a little bit more powerful. I think we're only talking about 100 in terms of energy. The calculated energy that most people come up with is like 100 to maybe 150 foot-pounds more. Okay, but energy is a calculated number. Okay, if you look at the momentum calculation, right, which is another equally good way to look at, like, okay, how much power it has. If you look at the momentum calculation, the 308 beats it. Okay, so as far as like, which is again one of the reasons why, like, I actually put out steel truck rims at distance and shoot them to see, okay, what's it actually doing. Okay, forget about what the numbers say. What is the actual what's it actually doing? So one of the interesting things that I've heard from people that hunt that distance is with both 308 and 6.5 Creedmoor, okay, they past 700 yards, they both start to struggle. Okay, struggle when you're trying to take large game, and now it doesn't mean that they won't kill it. It just means that, according to what they said, you either got to put more rounds on it, right? Shoot it more times, or it takes longer for the animal to die. So past 700 yards, both 308 and 6.5 Creedmoor start becoming less effective. Okay. Not that they're ineffective, but they start becoming less effective. If we bring it now back to 6.5 Grendel or 6.5 Arc, now it's going to be even less effective 700 yards and out. Okay, not that it's going to be ineffective, but it's even going to be less effective than the 308 and 6.5 Creedmoor. Okay, so those are my thoughts on that. That's the reason why I kind of like put it off. Which again, that is not to say that I won't get it at some point in the future. It's just that, you know what, I'd rather, you know, I mean, I'd rather put my time and money into other projects at the moment. Okay, that seem more interesting to me than that. Okay, so that's where my thoughts on that. And again, the purpose of this video is not to say that I think 6.5 Grendel or ARC suck. It's just to tell, I've had discussions over the year where I was thinking of getting it, and I just wanted to say why I decided not to get it at this point. Now, if I didn't have a stockpile of 7.62 by 3.9, I probably would have got the 6.5 Grendel. Okay. Now, just something to be aware of. As far as both of those calibers, people have reported that when you start like doing high round counts, start getting the guns like dirty or hot or whatever, they start becoming unreliable. Okay, people have reported feeding problems, especially with the 6.5 ARC. I saw another report where the military was considering, was looking at 6.5 ARC, and the issue that came up was with feeding problems. When you really start like pushing the guns and testing them under combat conditions with the mud and dirt and heating them up and stuff like that. That's so that did come up as an issue. Okay, so anyway, let me know what you guys think. Real quick, I just want to kind of share some thoughts on the 6.8 that the military has adopted. So I've done a little bit of research on that, not quite as much as I did on the 6.5 Grendel, it seems like they're trying to get this 6.8 to kind of do the job of a 308. Okay, but obviously it's not going to do as good, right? It's not going to be as good as a 6.5 Creedmoor. But at the same time, they're trying to also do 5.56 stuff with it, as far as like fast shooting, higher capacity, and I don't think it's going to do that job as well either. Okay, generally threats are more of a threat to you when they're up close to you. That's where you got to be able to get rounds off faster and be able to lay down like high volumes of fire, right? Suppressive fire and stuff like that. So I think that's like one of the places where the 5.56 really dominates, right? In the ability to just be able to carry lots of rounds and put down suppression fire. Okay, you start carrying bigger things, even a 7.62 by 3.9, which is a little bit heavier. You tend to carry less ammunition, or you tend to carry the same ammunition and just be a little bit slower because now you got more weight. So I don't think the 6.8 is going to be satisfactory, for the results that I think the military is looking for, and I don't think it's going to, at this point, I don't think it's a good choice for me. So where I'm at right now, it's like, I think like it's like 5.56 or 308, okay, and 7.62 by 3.9, only because I've got a stockpile of ammo. It's not something that I would recommend to somebody that doesn't have a stockpile of ammo. Okay, so my thoughts on that.